Third person facing charges in the efforts to overturn 2020 election results in Georgia now pleading guilty. Kenneth Chesbro accepted a plea deal today. Chesbro was initially charged with felony racketeering and 6 other counts in August. He accepted a last-minute deal today on a felony charge of conspiracy to commit filing false documents.
Has anyone forced, threatened, or promised you anything for you to enter into this guilty plea?
No.
It is your decision to waive these rights to enter into this guilty plea because you are in fact guilty.
Yes.
How do you plead to count 15, conspiracy to commit filing false documents in indictment number 23SC188947?
Guilty.
Have you and your attorney signed that indictment?
Yes.
Chesbro is facing 5 years probation and 100 hours of community service. He's also been ordered to pay $5,000 in restitution and is committed to testifying at any related future trials. Sidney Powell also pleaded guilty in the case. She's agreed to testify against Trump, Mark Meadows, Rudy Giuliani, and the others. Powell will get 6 years probation and pay a $6,000 fine. She'll also have to write an apology letter to Georgia and its residents. Chandelle Summer is a former assistant district attorney and assistant public defender. She is currently practicing law at Summer Law Firm in North Georgia. Chandelle, thank you for joining us. A second lawyer for Donald Trump taking a plea deal today in that Georgia election tampering case. That's Ken Chesbro. Sidney Powell did that yesterday. These are both people, though, in Trump's inner circle. So really, how significant would you say this is for the prosecution?
Well, it's huge. Good evening, Julie. The pleas of Powell and Chesbro were not entirely surprising in that the district attorney had a strong motivation not to want to try just 2 of the defendants and give a sneak peek at the evidence to all of the other defendants, who could then go through and parcel out what they wanted to use and learn how to defend against the parts they didn't. So it was not completely surprising, but it did come. It seems as though she's on a roll right now, getting plea bargains with all of the defendants that were slated to begin their trial next week.
Both of them wanting that speedy trial. Presumably, though, each person brings a different perspective. So what would you expect to get from Powell versus Chesbro?
Well, Sidney Powell was sort of in the inner circle. She was present immediately after the election and was involved in a meeting on, I believe it was December 18th, where they talked about different strategies for challenging the results of the election. She, however, I think quickly fell out of favor with the Trump team, and even former President Trump referred to her as crazy. She had all sorts of conspiracy theories and things that made her credibility questionable. So I don't know that her testimony is really going to be that pivotal to the prosecution, because I think the Trump team can easily distance themselves from her by just saying, those Coffee County people, we didn't have anything to do with that. She was a lone ranger. She was acting on her own, and she basically was off the reservation and was not part of our team.
Interesting. Well, would you expect more defendants now to plead out now that this dam, if you will, is broken?
Actually, I think the plea of Chesbro is more important in terms of watching the other defendants, because there's several of those defendants who are charged with simply being fake electors. And now he has admitted that he produced false documents for them to sign. Now, whether they can just lay the blame at his feet and go along and say, we didn't have anything to do with it. I have talked to some of the legislators who were involved at the early stages of this whole situation in Georgia, and they say that there were wild rumors running through the Capitol about election fraud, and that everybody was trying to do the best they could to make sure that nothing was untoward in terms of the election results. But that some of them, when they looked at it very closely, were able to determine that there was nothing to these allegations. And those were the allegations made by Rudy Giuliani about ballot boxes being stuffed and suitcases being brought in full of ballots and things like that. So I believe that the people who are the fake electors, which there's 4 or 5 of them still remaining in this case. I think that they have a pretty good defense that they were just acting on the information that they had at the time. And there's really nothing wrong with submitting an alternate slate of electors as long as it's contingent on the results being overturned in Georgia. And I believe that's how it was drafted here in Georgia.
Well, Chandelle, we have just about 30 seconds, but what does this mean really for all the other lawsuits in the works for both these two and former President Trump?
I think it means that they're not going to get to this case till the fall of 2024 because of the deconfliction of cases that are already set. Right now, Trump is involved in a civil case in New York. The case in Washington, D.C., where he's charged basically with trying to overthrow the results of the 2020 election, is slated to begin in March of 2024. And then you have the case down in Mar-a-Lago, which I believe is going to be set at some point. So I think by the time they get all of these cases that are already set through, it's probably going to be the fall before they can even come back to Georgia.
All right, Chandelle Summer, former Assistant District Attorney and Assistant Public Defender from Gainesville, Georgia. Thank you so much for joining us.